Hello, my fellow hollowed hunters, this is the Souls Fanatic, and today I will show you how to make the Bold Hunter's Mark from Bloodborne. As always, a list of materials is provided in the video's description below, as well as time skips to each step. Any templates seen in my videos can be found on my Patreon. Warning, we will be using fire for this project. Fire is hot and can burn you. I will be doing something stupid. Do not copy my actions without proper precaution. But without further ado, let's get started. For our first step, we will stain the paper to give it that old-aged look. You will need scissors, coffee mix, a lighter, a stir stick with a bowl of warm water, and a shallow tray large enough to hold the paper cutouts. You'll also need a sheet of white paper with the printed Hunter Rune template. You can try to paint them in ink yourself for a more natural look, or print the actual design from an online PNG for a more accurate look. I painted mine to fit the design as accurate as possible, but then cleaned it up in Photoshop afterward. It is important to note that you must use black ink when printing your design, because this would be considered a picture. Your printer will attempt to print this in colored ink. You must set your printer to black and white or use a printer that has that option. If you do not, your design's ink will separate and smear when it gets wet. I adjusted the size of the mark so that it fit within the palm of my hand. It is hard to judge how large this prop is supposed to be, but I imagine the hunter is looking at it in his hand before drifting off to sleep. Start by cutting out your template into the shape of a square. Make sure that you leave ample space to burn the edges of the paper, then rest the paper in your tray. Mix your coffee in the bowl of water and pour the solution on the paper. Make sure that the entire paper is covered, front and back, before laying it flat on the tray. Then bake the paper until it is dry. I baked it in a toaster oven for 2 minutes at 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Alternatively, you can also just wait for it to dry or use a hairdryer. And if you want, you can try to add special effects or second coats to add more detail. Now that our piece has dried, we can look at the nice coffee stain pattern. It might take a few attempts to get the right pattern that you want, but I wouldn't be too picky because the next step is even harder to control. For our second step, we will burn the edges of the paper. You will need your stained paper and a lighter. I recommend that you use a practice paper before starting this step because fire is very hard to control and you will make mistakes multiple times. When you light an edge on fire, you can blow it out, then dip your fingers into cold water and pinch the embers. This can burn you if you do not do it properly. If you are afraid of getting burned, I recommend leather gloves. Do not use any kind of woven or rubber gloves, they need to be solid leather. Now, when burning the edges of the paper into a specific shape, you want to see the embers slowly burning their way up the paper. When the embers spread to parts you do not want to be burned, pinch them to snuff them out. Once you're comfortable with the technique, you can begin on your project. I'm trying to replicate the in-game design as best as possible, but I think burning them in any random pattern would be more realistic. You will want to work your way around the paper in a circular fashion to focus on one point at a time. If you want a darker charred look on the edge, you will have to let a larger flame engulf that edge, and then quickly snuff out the flame before the embers can burn away that charred edge. And with that, our bold hunter's mark is finished. Final thoughts? It's kind of simple and boring, but looks pretty accurate. Unfortunately, it's not portable because it is fragile like a dried leaf, and the coffee stain might leach out if the paper ever gets wet. I recommend it as an easy accessory piece on a display shelf. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe for more videos in the future.